The four principles for the book of Revelation are, first of all, the epistolary nature of the revelation. It is a letter in part. The contextual structure of Revelation 1:9, the sequential nature of the septet judgments, and then the prophetic template of Daniel 9:27, or the 70th week of Daniel in comparison with the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, as well as Revelation 4 through 19. First of all, the epistolary nature. Revelation, in part, is a letter written to 7 churches in Asia Minor. It begins with a prologue, and it ends with an epilogue. Principle 2, the contextual structure, as recorded and given by John in Revelation 1:19, when it says, "Write things which you have seen," Revelation chapter 1, "things which are," Revelations 2 and 3, and then the things that shall take place after these things, which is Revelations 4 through 22. John was provided a literary, sequential, and chronological division to the revelation with this threefold structure. Now, a structural outline, a very broad structural outline, then tells us there is the prologue of the letter in the first 8 verses, the things which John had seen, verses 9 through 20 of the first chapter, the things which are, or that existed at that time, the letters to the 7 churches, chapters 2 and 3, and then really the major section of the book, the things that will take place after, chapters 4 almost through 22, and then the epilogue 22:6 and following. Principle 3 deals with the sequential nature of the septet judgments. This principle concerns the sequential nature of the 3 sets of 7, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and then the 7 bowls of Revelation. Revelation's structure is determined in part by one's understanding of whether the 3 septet judgments are sequential, one following the other, or simultaneous, all happening at the same time. When you read commentaries, this greatly influences their interpretation of the text. It's, are you going to shuffle the deck, or are you not going to shuffle the deck? I'm not a deck shuffler. I don't know of any book of the Bible that you have to shuffle to understand. Now, the simultaneous view, sometimes referred to as the recapitulation view, suggests, for instance, the first seal, the first trumpet, and the first bowl are 3 views of the same judgment that takes place at the same time. Each recapitulation reviews previous events and adds further details. 1, 1, 1 are not 3 in this math, it's 1. Simultaneous view emphasizes that there are similarities between the septets. They will say each set of the judgments is more intense and destructive than the previous ones. They'll say, for instance, look, the second trumpet destroys 1/3 of the seas, while the second bowl turns all of the seas into blood. The third trumpet pollutes 1/3 of the rivers and springs, while the third bowl transforms all of the rivers and springs to blood. The sequential view is sometimes called the telescoping view, and this is the one that I embrace. This understands that the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls as successive judgments that proceed out of each other. Just like a telescope telescoping out. The 7th seal is the 7 trumpets and the 7 bowls. The 7th trumpet is the 7 seals. This allows you to see the chronological and the sequential nature of it. Now, when the 7th seal is broken, we see then the 7 trumpets are executed. The 7 trumpets are the content of the 7th seal. When the 7th trumpet is blown, then we see in the text 7 bowl judgments are executed, and it says, in these, the wrath of God is finished. The wrath of God is completed. Arguments against the simultaneous view. And the simultaneous view is primarily embraced by non-rapturous and then mid-tribulational and post-tribulational rapturists, as I will show. Although there are minor similarities between the septets, the differences are more crucial and determinative. First of all, the seals generally differ in content from the trumpet and the bowl plagues. Next, there is no alignment between the first, fifth, and seventh parallel judgments of the septets. When similarity does exist, the details clearly show a difference through the intensity and the nature of the judgments. Now, let's talk about some evidence for the sequential structure of the septet judgments. First of all, I say a plain face reading of the text. When you read the text, there are two phrases. John says over and over again, and I saw, and I saw, and I saw. And then he says, and after this, and after this, and after this. That shows a sequential and chronological movement throughout the book. Secondly, the seven seals are followed by seven trumpets, which are followed by the seven bowls. The bowls evidence a sequential pattern, as they are called the last. Now, if there is a last, there's got to be maybe a first. And if there's a last, I'd suggest maybe that there's a first and a middle, because in them the wrath of God is finished. Another evidence for the sequential view is the use of ordinal numbers rather than cardinal numbers. Just like in English, we have first, second, and third, or 1, 2, and 3. So in the Greek language, when they are talking about something that is sequential, something that is in order, chronological, they'll say, well, this is the first thing, this is the second thing, this is the third thing. And that is the numerical words that are used to describe the trumpets. Next, the breaking of the seventh seal leads directly and sequentially into the execution of the seven trumpets. The seven angels that execute the seven trumpet judgments bring an intensity of destruction. The sequential nature is also seen in the progression of the three woes. You remember in Revelation chapter 9, there is a pronouncement of three woes. These three woes follow and parallel the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh trumpet. And so from chapters 9 through 11, you see this chronological and sequential nature as they line up with the intensity of the woe judgments. The seventh trumpet is linked directly to the seven bowls. It says, when the angel sounds the seventh trumpet, John states, then the mystery of God is finished. John emphasizes that in the bowl judgments, the wrath of God is finished. Thus, the seventh trumpet brings forth the execution of the seven bowls and the completion of God's wrath. The 144,000 Jewish men who were sealed, they are sealed after the sixth seal is broken, but before the seventh seal is broken. They are sealed in anticipation of a coming judgment. The fifth trumpet brings a plague on those who are not sealed, showing a chronological and a sequential progression. The men are protected from many trumpet judgments, but are martyred for their testimony. Then in chapter 14, we see that they are present with the Lamb in heaven prior to the bowl judgments. The sequential view summarized. The crucial differences between the septet judgments argues for a successive view, including a plain face reading of the text, the sequential character in each septet, the use of ordinal numbers, the sequential nature of the seventh part of each septet, and of course the contextual clues of progression. So if you accept a sequential kind of one following out of the other for the three septet judgments, well then you have much of the book of Revelation locked in with its numerical, its chronological, and it follows one after the other. You do not have to shuffle the deck.